Hi, my name's Roy Tate. I cleaned toilets on a SEAL base, have for years. Last week, a junior officer laughed in my face and told me I should be in a nursing home. He kicked over my mop bucket and called me the old man with a badge. He had no idea what the mark on my hand meant. Neither did the room full of soldiers who stood there and said nothing. But one man looked twice. And that changed everything. Before you judge an old janitor, ask yourself, what if he was the ghost of a war they tried to erase? Ellipsis. They call me Roy. Nobody asks for my first name. And that's just fine by me. I show up before the sun. The gym's still dark. The air's cold and sharp like a reprimand. This place reeks of sweat, metal, and bleach, clean on the surface. But nothing here's ever really clean. Especially not the memories. My boots echo as I push the mop across the concrete. Steady, always steady. The young bucks will flood in soon, jacked up SEAL trainees. High on protein shakes and testosterone. They train like war's just another sport. I don't look at them. And they don't look at me. Until one does. Hey, old man, you blind or just slow? He's tall, built like a wrecking ball. Probably 25. The kind of guy who thinks respect is something you bark, not something you earn. I keep mopping. I said move it. He snaps. His voice cuts through the gym like a blade. The mop squeaks as I drag it along the edge of the mat. I'm not ignoring him. I'm just choosing silence. He stomps closer. Shadow looms over me. You gonna make me repeat myself? I straighten. Not quick. Just enough for my spine to protest in every damn joint. My eyes meet his. I see a boy behind the biceps. A boy who thinks volume equals authority. We need this mat. Go clean the women's locker room or something. I blink. Dust affects breathing, especially under strain. I say. My voice is gravel, low, dry, deliberate. He snorts. What, are you the dust police now? His hand lashes out. Whack. The mop clatters to the floor like a snapped bone. A few of his buddies snicker. I glance at the mop. Then at him. I don't pick it up. Not yet. That silence? That's not weakness. That's me holding back every damn thing I could say. He steps in, chest puffed, heat radiating off him like a furnace. Newsflash. No one cares what some fossil janitor thinks. You're not a warrior. You're a walking liability. Still, I say nothing, just bend down to grab the mop. My shirt collar slips. And that's when it happens. The room doesn't shift, not yet, but a pair of eyes catch the ink beneath my hairline. A faded trident, wrapped in a serpent. Time has dulled it, but not enough. Master Chief Thorne, across the gym, sees it. Stops mid-curl. His expression freezes. He's seen it before. Not in person. In archives. Black Ops history. Slate, the loudmouth, doesn't notice. Maybe get this guy a walker. He tells his friends. With a mop holder. The laughter dies the second Thorne steps in. Boots firm. Gaze locked. Petty Officer Slate. Problem? Slate stiffens like he's been caught stealing. No, sir. Just redirecting personnel. Thorne doesn't look at Slate. His eyes stay on me. His name is Mr. Roy. He says, flat and hard. Something in the room shifts. Respect doesn't echo. It lands like a dropped weight. Slate mutters something under his breath and backs off. His swagger deflates. I pick up my mop. My hands are shaking, but not from fear. From memory. The kind that smells like diesel and blood. The kind they never write down. I didn't want this. Didn't want anyone noticing. I came here to vanish. To mop floors and forget things no one should remember. But the past doesn't give a damn what you want. And this? This was just the beginning. Ellipsis. I didn't sleep much that night. It wasn't what the kid said. God knows I've heard worse. From people who meant it more. No, it was the look in Thorne's eyes, like he saw through me. Like the mop was just camouflage that suddenly stopped working. I kept my routine. Wake up before dawn. Coffee. Black. Oatmeal if my stomach didn't twist. Same boots. Same jacket. Back at the gym by 0430. But something had changed. When I walked in, the front desk guy didn't nod like usual. He stood straighter. Said, "Good morning, Mr. Roy," like he was talking to a senator. Whatever Thorne saw yesterday, he didn't keep it to himself. Fine. Let them talk. I pushed open the door to the gym. The lights were already on. Slade stood at the far end of the room, hands wrapped in tape, gloves half on. He caught sight of me. And for a second, I saw it. Confusion. Fear? No. Something worse. Wounded pride. He turned his back. Good. I headed for the closet, grabbed the mop, and got to work. 15 minutes in, I felt the shift in air pressure before I heard the steps. Thorn again. He didn't say anything, just stood there for a beat too long. I didn't ask for attention. I said, not looking up. No, sir, he replied quietly, but you've earned it. I stopped mid-swipe. Don't call me sir. I looked it up. I turned then. He met my eyes. He was younger than me. Sure, but not by much. Enough gray at the temples to show he'd paid some dues. Enough steel in his spine to show he knew when to stand up. Classified's supposed to stay buried, I said. It didn't take much, just a symbol, a rumor, a name, Vernon Roy, Pacific Theater, Korea, then, nothing. I stared at him, because that's what it was supposed to be. Nothing. He took a step closer. Makos. That word didn't belong in the air. Not here, not now. You have any idea what would have happened to us if we got caught? I whispered. They'd erase us. Not metaphorically. Literally. Burn our names. Close the files. Call our families liars. I read the redacted report. Or what was left of it. No, you didn't. You read what someone let you see. The truth? It's still under lock, behind codes no one uses anymore. He nodded. But you're real. That part's not redacted. I leaned on the mop. Suddenly tired. Why are you here, Chief? Because the Navy forgot, and someone needs to remember. Memories don't need mop buckets. Maybe not, he said, but honor does. I looked at him for a long time. You're walking a fine line. He gave a small smile. Wouldn't be the first time. Across the gym, Slade was pretending not to listen, but his posture was stiff. Every SEAL in that room had ears on us. And Thorn knew it. He turned to them, voice raised. You all know who Mr. Roy is? You should. The room stilled. This man swam under enemy harbors with live explosives strapped to his chest. He did it before there were flippers. Before there were night goggles. Before anyone even called us SEALs. Someone dropped a dumbbell. The clang echoed. Thorn didn't stop. He cleared minefields with a knife and a prayer. Took out patrol boats in pitch-black water. His unit doesn't have a Wikipedia page. They barely have gravestones. He looked at me again. You want me to stop? I nodded. He turned back. Then show some damn respect. Not because of the tattoo. Because he earned it. Nobody spoke. Not for a full 30 seconds. Then Slade walked over. Slow, like each step cost him something. He stopped in front of me. I didn't know. I stared at him. I didn't care. I said, which is worse? He flinched. Yeah, that's fair. He held out his hand. I didn't take it, not right away. I cleaned the blood off those mats once. I said, before you were born, one of your instructors passed out from heatstroke. Head split on the barbell. I scrubbed until the bleach burned holes in my jeans. No one asked my name then. I'm asking now. I looked at the hand again. Took it. Firm grip. Real. Then start by learning to look. His nod was quick. Embarrassed, but not fake. Thorn clapped once. All right, ladies. Back to work. Sweat earns respect, not speeches. The gym exploded into motion. Slate turned and jogged back. His buddies didn't laugh this time. They trained harder. I went back to mopping. Same rhythm. But something had changed. And I wasn't sure I liked it. Ellipsis. The next morning, there was a folder waiting for me in the maintenance closet. Manila. Thick. Unmarked except for a sticky note. For your eyes. T. No rank. No signature. Just that single initial. I stared at it for a while. Part of me didn't want to touch it. The other part, the one that used to do midnight dives into enemy harbors, picked it up anyway. Inside, a single printout. A photo, old and grainy. 3 men on a beach. Bare-chested, arms slung over each other's shoulders. Salt crusted their skin, eyes squinting against the sun. And there, on each of their necks, the trident wrapped in the serpent. My heart didn't beat faster. It slowed. I ran my finger across the photo. The man in the middle, me. But younger. So much younger I barely recognized myself. Below the picture, a note. Operation Mako. Survivors. 1. I folded the folder shut, slid it behind the bleach bottles, and went to work like nothing had happened. But everything had. By noon, the gym felt different. Eyes lingered longer. The new guy at the front desk offered me coffee, real stuff. Not that burnt pot we usually ignored. Slate nodded at me like we'd shared a foxhole. Even Thorne kept his distance. And then the commander showed up. Not Thorne. I mean Commander Jacobs. He didn't make an entrance. No barking, no entourage. Just walked in wearing a windbreaker and aviators. Like a dad headed to a barbecue. But every SEAL in the room straightened like a ruler. He walked past the bench press. Past the reins. Past Slade and his crew mid-circuit. Walked straight to me. Mr. Roy? I kept mopping. That's what they call me. I'm Commander Jacobs. His voice was calm, measured, no weight thrown around, yet. Could we have a word? I leaned the mop against the wall. What about? He glanced at the bleach bottles. The folder. I didn't move. That was personal. I know. I also know it's time you stopped hiding. Hiding? I laughed once. Dry. You think mopping floors in a SEAL facility is hiding? I picked this place for a reason. Nobody asks questions here. They just grunt, sweat, and move on. You picked this place because deep down, you hoped someone would notice. That hit harder than it should have. You think I wanted a ceremony? I said. A plaque on the wall? I buried brothers with no names. I watched a man bleed out on a coral reef while whispering the names of his kids. There's no honor in being remembered when they were erased. He didn't argue, just stood there, letting the weight of it settle. Then he reached into his coat and handed me something. A challenge coin, not your usual kind. This one was matte black, edges worn from use. I flipped it over. An insignia I hadn't seen in decades. UDT-12, precursor to the SEALs, my unit. I looked up. He met my eyes. We've only ever given out 3 of these. He said. One was posthumous. One was buried with its owner. I said nothing. I want you to talk to the men. No. Not about medals or tactics. About what it means to do the job and still live with yourself. I looked away. Some days, I don't. He nodded, like he expected that. Then he lowered his voice. We're building warriors without giving them the tools to be men. They know how to breach a door but not how to say, I'm sorry. They can clear a room, but not a conscience. And you think I can fix that? I think they'll listen to someone who's done both. He let that hang in the air, then turned and walked off without waiting for a yes. I stood there, the coin heavy in my palm. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table, turning that coin over and over. On the wall, in a dusty frame, hung a faded photo of my unit. No medals, no names, just faces. 3 men who gave everything. And one who walked away. The next morning, I showed up at the gym like always. Same boots, same jacket. But this time, I wasn't just mopping floors. This time, I had something to say. Ellipsis. They set up the chairs like it was some kind of seminar. Neat little rows, whiteboard behind me, coffee urns in the corner. Smelling like burned promises. Most of the SEALs came in with arms crossed, trying to look casual, like they didn't care. But they came. Even Slade sat down near the back, his leg bouncing like a jackhammer. I caught Thorne standing off to the side, nodding once as I walked to the front. Jacobs wasn't in sight, probably watching behind some two-way mirror, letting the junior wolves decide if the old dogs still had teeth. I didn't clear my throat, didn't write my name on the board. I just stood there and looked at them, let the silence stretch long enough to get uncomfortable. Name's Roy, I said. I clean toilets and mop floors. Been doing it longer than most of you've been shaving. A chuckle or two, nervous, dismissive. Before that, I swam into places no sane man should go, with C4 strapped to my chest, a dive knife between my teeth, and a prayer in my lungs. We didn't have night vision. We had moonlight and fear. Mostly fear. A few stopped fidgeting. I'm not here to give you a speech. I'm here because your commander thinks you're tough enough to hear the truth. Now I had them. You think the hard part is breaching a room? Clearing a kill house? No. The hard part is 3 months later when you can't remember if the guy you shot had a weapon or just moved the wrong way. The room stilled. You think being a warrior is about muscle, tactics, medals? I shook my head. No, it's about living with ghosts. It's about walking into the mess hall and hearing someone laugh. And for a second you think it's your buddy from the Mekong. Until you remember he bled out in your arms. Silence now. Even the cocky ones weren't smirking. There's no glory in what we do. Not real glory. Not the kind that stays. There's only the work, the price, and the people who come home with all the pieces broken inside. Slate shifted in his seat. I saw his jaw tighten. I took a breath, let the weight settle in my chest. My best friend, Danny, used to say, "We don't wear capes. Roy, we wear shadows." That's who we were. Ghosts before ghosts were cool. We cleared the way for the real invasions. And then we disappeared. A pause. One mission. We swam 8 hours through jellyfish and oil slicks just to cut a wire. One wire. Nobody even knew it was us. But if we hadn't, 30 boats wouldn't have made it out alive. 30 crews. 30 mothers not burying their sons. I looked down at the mop I'd leaned by the door. Same mop I'd used every day for the last 5 years. My anchor. My mask. Sometimes, you need to forget you were ever dangerous. Because remembering hurts worse. And just like that, my voice cracked. Not enough to break me, but enough to show them I wasn't bulletproof. That I didn't want to be. And that's when I saw it. A hand raised. Slate. Slow, hesitant. I nodded. He stood, cleared his throat. His voice was low, but it carried. You said there's no glory. No capes. Just ghosts. He looked me dead in the eye. How do you live with it? The ghosts? That question didn't come from a show-off. It came from a man who'd seen the edge. I took a step forward. Looked right at him. You don't, I said. Not really. You make space for them. At your dinner table. In your dreams. You carry them like old scars. And when it gets too heavy, you find someone who understands. You sit beside them. You don't have to talk. Just sit. Because silence is a language ghosts speak fluently. He swallowed, nodded, sat back down. I didn't speak after that. Didn't need to. The silence in the room wasn't awkward anymore. It was sacred. Ellipsis. It was never supposed to be about me. I said my piece. I expected it to fade. A ripple in a storm of louder stories. Younger bodies. Faster wars. But things don't stay quiet in a place full of soldiers with too much pride and not enough silence. 3 days after the talk, someone left a copy of the base newsletter on my locker. Front page. The janitor with a trident. Inside, an anonymous op-ed. Rambling. Angry. Someone called me a ghost chaser. Said I was making stuff up for attention. Said I was exploiting the memory of real heroes to build some legend of my own. And I knew exactly who it was. Not Slate. Slate had seen the edge. He'd backed away. But someone on his team, someone who wasn't ready to admit the quiet man with the mop might have done more with a blade and a lungful of water than they ever would with a rifle. The base was split. Half the younger guys were suddenly awkward around me. The other half asked for training tips like I had a secret stash of forgotten martial arts. Officers were more polite. Too polite. Like they were waiting for the other boot to drop. And Jacobs? He vanished. Meetings, trips, radio silence. Only Thorne remained. He didn't say much, but he was watching. One night, I found him by the gear lockers. Alone, like he was waiting for a ghost. Want to tell me who wrote it? I asked. He shook his head. If I knew, I'd handle it. I waited. He finally looked at me. You shook something loose in them. Some don't like what they see. What do they see? Mortality. That someday. The metals stop clinking and all you're left with is time and silence. That scares the hell out of them. I leaned on the wall. Funny, silence is the only thing that ever kept me sane. He chuckled. A low, bitter sound. Roy, they've built an identity around being the toughest men in any room. You walked in, quiet as rain, and cracked that open with a story and a scar. Some of them, they don't know how to handle that. I didn't ask to be their mirror. No. But you are. The next day, my locker was broken into. They didn't take anything. Just scattered my gear, poured bleach in my thermos, cracked the photo frame of my old team. They left one thing taped to the wall. A crude drawing. A janitor's mop, stuck through the middle with a trident. Below it. Should have stayed in the shadows. Old man. I didn't report it. I didn't clean it up, either. I left it there, just as it was. Because if they wanted to see how a real warrior responds to petty threats, they were about to. That night, I called Jacobs. He answered on the second ring. I want to talk, I said. His voice was tight. You sure? No, I said, but I'm done being quiet. Ellipsis. Jacobs met me in his office after hours. No aides, no flags, just a quiet room with one chair across from his desk and a window that looked out over the motor pool. He didn't offer me coffee. I didn't ask. I sat down. The air between us was thick with something unspoken. Respect, maybe, or the fact that respect had a price. You sure about this? He asked. No, I said, but I've cleaned enough blood off these floors to know when the stain's about to set in. He folded his hands, elbows on the desk. There's a formal inquiry, unofficial. For now, somebody's poking at your file. I snorted. Let me guess. They didn't find much. Barely anything, he said, which makes them more suspicious. Of course it does, I muttered. Only ghosts don't leave paperwork. Jacobs leaned forward. Look, Roy, I believe you. Thorne believes you. But this command runs on order. On hierarchy. You blow that up. Even with the truth, you fracture everything we stand on. I met his eyes. Everything you stand on, or everything you protect. He flinched. Just a twitch. But I saw it. You think I wanted this? I said. To be dragged out of the dirt like some forgotten relic? I came here to vanish. Not to become some damn myth. You already are a myth. I stood, slow, walked to the window. Below, 2 squads ran night drills in the lot. Barking orders, boots thudding, young men chasing ghosts they didn't know existed. You ever hear of Operation Hollow Wind? I asked. Jacobs stiffened. That's not. Yeah, I know. It's not in the books. Not in the classroom. Not in the bedtime stories they feed these boys. I turned to him. I was there. We inserted off the coast in silence. No flag, no comms, no backup. We sabotaged a convoy headed to a region so unstable they didn't even name the villages. We were told if we died, we'd be buried in the ocean. He didn't speak. One of us made it out. Jacobs swallowed. You? I nodded. No medals, no report, no funeral for the others. Just me, and a memory so sharp it cuts every time I close my eyes. He leaned back like the weight of that hit him in the ribs. I've buried that mission so deep it only speaks to me in nightmares. I said, and now, your men want to mock it? Scratch it into locker walls like graffiti? I'll handle them. No, I said, you let me. Jacobs blinked. What are you saying? I want to talk to them. All of them. In the gym. One time. No rank. No rules. Just man to man. He hesitated. That's unorthodox. So is war, I said. He didn't argue. He just nodded once. Slow. Final. Tomorrow night, he said, you'll have the floor. I walked to the door. Paused. Then turned back. One more thing, I said. What? Have a medic on standby. His eyes narrowed. Why? Because when I'm done, I said, some of those boys are gonna feel pain they've never trained for. Ellipsis. They gave me 10 minutes. 10 minutes to stand in front of 50 men who thought I was either a fraud, a freak, or a ghost someone forgot to bury. It was the base gym again. Same place they lift iron and break records. The same room where Slate first shoved my mop aside like I was just another piece of background noise. But this time, nobody laughed. They sat in silence. Thorne was in the back, arms crossed. Jacobs stood near the exit, eyes like steel. And Slate, front row, spine stiff like he was bracing for impact. I didn't bring notes. Didn't need him. You want to know what war smells like? I asked, voice steady. It's not glory. It's not gunpowder. It's rotting wood, diesel, blood that's been on your skin so long you forget it's there. A ripple moved through the crowd. I'm not here to convince you of what I did. I'm here to tell you what it cost. I reached into my jacket. Pulled out a photo. Edges worn down to fuzz. I held it up. 3 boys in swim gear. One of them was me. The other 2, smiling, cocky, full of sunburnt youth, were gone before I turned 23. This was my unit. Operation Hollow Wind. You won't find it in any file. You won't read about it in any Naval History Monthly. You'll only hear about it in rooms like this, where the truth doesn't need clearance. I paused, scanned their faces. Some of you think I made it all up. Slate's jaw twitched. I get it, I said. You've been trained to sniff out lies. You've been taught the chain of command is sacred. That legends don't clean toilets. I walked toward Slate. But let me ask you something. What if I told you the real heroes never wanted to be remembered? That the bravest men I've ever known died in the dark, never expecting parades or statues? Now Slate looked up. I stopped in front of him. I don't want your respect, I said. I want your honesty. Look me in the eye and tell me you've never felt fear. Real fear. The kind that hollows you out. He held my gaze, said nothing. That's what separates boys from ghosts. I turned back to the crowd. You think war ends when the gunfire stops? No. It keeps living inside you. It waits, quiet, like a tumor made of memories. A younger SEAL in the back raised a hand. Why didn't you ever tell anyone? That hit hard. I walked back to the center of the room. Because no one wants to hear the truth. Not really. They want the version that makes them feel brave, not the one that makes them feel small. I let that sit for a second. Then I pulled up my sleeve. The tattoo. The coiled serpent around the trident. Faded, but still there, still watching. This was done by hand. On a dirt floor. Before we left, we weren't supposed to come back. It wasn't about the ink. It was a promise. Now the room wasn't silent. It was still. Like the kind of still you feel in the ocean right before a storm hits. Slate stood. I didn't flinch. He walked up, slow. Everyone held their breath. Then, without a word, he reached out and touched the tattoo. Lightly. Like it might burn. I'm sorry, he said. It wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. Because when a man like that lowers his voice, the whole damn room listens. And just like that, something shifted. Not respect. Not yet. But belief. And that? That was enough. Ellipsis. The trouble didn't start right away. It came slow, like a leak behind drywall. Quiet, steady, and ready to rot everything from the inside out. A week after the gym, I got called into the admin office. Thought it was about the floors. Maybe a supply order. It wasn't. Chief Administrative Officer Weller sat behind a desk stacked with folders no one reads unless something's already gone wrong. He didn't shake my hand. Didn't smile. You're being reassigned, he said, tapping a sheet I wasn't allowed to touch. Effective immediately. To where? I asked. He didn't look up. Civilian maintenance. Off base. Contractual. Temporary. That's a pretty word for exile. He exhaled through his nose. You stirred up a lot of noise. Mr. Tate, people upstairs don't like noise. I didn't lie. I'm not saying you did. I'm saying you made them look in a direction they've spent decades avoiding. I stared at him. I didn't ask for a spotlight. Didn't have to, he said. Truth has its own damn gravity. That night, I cleaned out my locker. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't want a farewell tour. This wasn't a retirement party. It was a quiet shuffle into the shadows. The kind that comes not when you fail, but when you speak too clearly. As I stepped outside, Thorne was waiting. Jacobs fought it, he said, walking beside me toward the gate. I figured, I said. They told him to let it go. Said that narrative was drifting. I laughed, sharp and humorless. Narrative, that's what they call memory now. We stopped near the parking lot. Base lights buzzed overhead, cold and sterile. You're not done, Thorne said. You think you are, but this story isn't finished. It was never supposed to be a story. I said. It was supposed to be a life I left behind. He nodded, like he understood something deeper than I said. I think they're scared, he said. Of me? Of what you represent. A history they didn't write. A version of heroism that doesn't ask permission. I looked out past the fence. The world outside looked the same, but I wasn't sure I still fit in it. You think they'll erase it? I asked. Already trying, he said, but they can't erase you. I opened the truck door. Tossed my bag in. Keep your eyes open, I told him. The ones who write history don't always have the cleanest hands. Then I drove off base. No ceremony. No salute. Just the hum of old tires on dark pavement and the sound of my own breath. Steady, refusing to break. But even silence has an echo. 2 days later, I got a letter. No return address. Inside, a photo. It was the same picture I'd held up in the gym, my old team, but this time. It had a handwritten note on the back. It said, I remember. You're not alone. And beneath that, a phone number. Handwritten, neat, sharp. Like someone who once carved words into stone and expected them to last. Ellipsis. I didn't call the number right away. I kept the note on the kitchen table next to my coffee pot. Beside a folded paper towel and an empty sugar jar I never bothered to refill. It sat there for 3 days. Every morning, I'd look at it and walk away. Every night, I'd pour a little whiskey and tell myself tomorrow. Then the letter came. No stamp, no name. Just slid under my door like a whisper. It read, they're gathering next Thursday. Quiet place, old hangar, no press, just ghosts who still remember. And beneath that, you were one of us. You still are. Come if you're ready. I didn't sleep much after that. Thursday came faster than I expected. I shaved for the first time in a week. Found a clean shirt. Polished my boots until I could almost see the kid I used to be in them. The hangar was off the old runway on the edge of town. Nobody used it anymore. A few rusted Humvees sat out front like forgotten sentinels. Inside, it was cooler than I thought it'd be. Smelled like oil and leather and time. There were maybe 12 of them. Some in uniform. Most not. They didn't clap when I walked in. Didn't stand. But every head turned. And every eye held a piece of what I thought I'd buried. I nodded. They nodded back. That was enough. In the center of the room, they'd set up a folding table. No podium, no mic, just coffee in a steel urn. A stack of paper cups. And a binder. A thick one. Roy, someone said. I turned. Didn't recognize the man, but his eyes knew mine. Name's Dorsey. You pulled my uncle out of the water in '53. He didn't make it, but my family's known your name ever since. I didn't know what to say. He held out the binder. Read it when you're ready. It's a collection. Names, ops, notes, everything the Navy forgot. We've been gathering pieces, stories, evidence. What for? To restore it, he said, to make it real again. For our sons, for our daughters, for the truth. I ran my fingers across the dusty cover. A knot tightened in my chest. You think they'll let it stand? No, Dorsey said, but we're not asking. I sat down. They all gathered around. Not in a circle, not in formation, just there. Like a shield. I opened the binder. First page. A black and white photo of a young man in wet fatigues. Holding a detonation cord like it was a lifeline. Me. And next to it, handwritten in ink. This is what bravery looks like when no one is watching. I didn't cry. Not in front of them. But my hand trembled as I turned the page. They started talking then, one by one, sharing names, details, lost files, pieces of the past stitched together with memory and willpower. It wasn't a meeting. It was a reckoning. And somewhere between page 34 and page 76, I realized I wasn't done. The Navy could bury names. But it couldn't bury echoes. Not if we kept speaking them. Later that night, as the hangar emptied, Dorsey clapped me on the shoulder. We need someone to tell it straight, he said, someone who was there. I looked at him. You sure they'll listen? They already are. That night, back home, I sat down at the kitchen table. Took out a pen. And started to write. Not for medals. Not for vengeance. But for the boy I was when it all began, and the ghosts still waiting for their names to be spoken out loud.